Think we're all set?
Just give me 1 minute just to get it. YouTube is just getting ready. Come on, YouTube. Sometimes it takes a little longer than we'd like.
Good luck, everybody. You're going to do great.
Thank you.
It's getting there. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeannie Ann Pattyfoot. I am the Interim Superintendent of Schools. Welcome to tonight's webinar on distance learning. We designed this webinar for parents, and we crafted answers to the questions you sent in advance. This webinar is being live streamed and recorded for the district website. Tonight, we hope to accomplish and present to you and provide clarity about expectations for learners and how struggling learners will be supported. We will offer information about how schedules and classrooms will operate in and out of distance learning, including how much time will be live streaming, how attendance will be handled, and what Wednesdays would look like in the hybrid model. We also will provide some practical examples from our practitioners about learning design and how learners will access the classroom. Our webinar is scheduled for 1 hour and will conclude at 8:30. Tonight's panelists are Aaron Chester, Stacy Daly, Michael Ginsberg, Drew Saletti, Christopher Pagliuco, and Paul Mezek. And thank you to our administrative team who are joining us this evening as well. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Gail Dowling-Hench. Gail?
Thank you, Dr. Pattyfoot, and also thank you to our panelists and our admin team and all of the many task force and subcommittees that served during the summertime in order to provide the information to you tonight. I wanted to start out by thanking the parents and our community for participating in the many surveys that we've sent out since we started this journey in distance learning. It has definitely informed our thinking. It's helped to provide feedback and to identify the areas that we want to improve upon as we launch this school year. So as soon as the surveys were completed in June from over 1,000 parents, our admin team joined together and we poured through the information that you provided. When we extrapolate out the information about distance learning, we found some themes for improvement that were organized around K through 12 responses. And you'll see those themes listed on the left-hand side. Also, the information on the right was really some data points that helped us to understand the degree to which we needed to improve upon other experiences. So you'll see that over 50% of those respondents agreed or strongly agreed that their students were receiving feedback during remote learning that was frequent, and that the kids had been able to maintain a relationship with their teacher during that time period, and that they did make academic progress. However, less than 50% of those over 1,000 parents also felt that their child did not always enjoy the flexibility in schedule. You will see these themes and this information throughout our presentation tonight as we continue to think about what the year will look like, how to support our parents, and how to support our learners. Before we left at the end of the school year, we really wanted to examine the advice from sending teams and sending grade levels to receiving teams. We wanted to be clear on the skills and the concepts that were taught in trimester 3 that might need to be retaught or reassessed or also covered in a different way. So you'll see that our sending teachers actually filled out in the disciplines the core disciplines, the skills, as well as the assessment advice that they could give the receiving team. And then the receiving team took that information to look at the fall launch units and identify what skills they felt were most important, and then look at recommendations for reteaching. So these are just 2 documents that are examples of that kind of communication. We wanted to make sure that we did that before we left in June, because we knew that our teachers needed to have access to that during the summer as well as throughout the school year, because we knew that some of the concepts in disciplines such as math or science were really tied to a unit that may not be taught until January of this year. I'll give you an example of that. If I'm looking at fractions and a fraction unit being essential for kids to revisit before I go on to decimals, then I want to make sure the timing of that unit and those reteaching points are tied to that sequential unit, not necessarily taking place in the fall, but essential for kids to be able to grab new learning. In addition, we didn't take for granted the fact that our students still felt connected to teachers. We knew we had the benefit of having 2 full trimesters face-to-face with our kids before we went into distance learning. In Madison, we've always taken social emotional learning seriously. We don't take it for granted, and we wanted to continue to prioritize our connections to kids and our kids' connections to each other. So a task force that met during the summer and continually during the summer, still meets every single week, is dedicating themselves to really looking at social emotional learning and building school community. Part of that work is developing lessons that will be given to every student throughout the district, K through 12, to launch the school year. And these are some of the titles of those lessons. We think it's imperative that we have students connect not only to us, but to each other, regardless of what their experience is in terms of the model. Parents have always been our partners in education. I think there's no greater time that we are challenged to keep that connection. We know that parents at home are struggling, being the proponents of their kids' education, being placed sometimes in the position of being facilitator for young students' learning. We realize that you need support the way we need support. We want to make sure that the parents know that the staff and the teachers are there for them as well. So we have developed the idea of a parent mini webinar series. We sent out a survey regarding that a few weeks ago. We thank you for your responses. You can tell that we use survey information. These are the webinars that we are currently looking forward to offering. The first one is on August 24th, and you'll see that's before the start of school. And our webinars are about 30 minutes in length. They start at 6 o'clock. This is to support anxious students, and it will be co-sponsored with Madison Youth and Family Services. But also I want to draw your attention to the webinar on September 6th. That will be a particular webinar about navigating Google Classroom for parents. You will have a bit of that webinar tonight, but this will give you a more in-depth tutorial. You'll see these 2 terms over and over again. You've already seen them in our reopening plan. I just want to clarify these terms before I go on. This idea of synchronous learning or live teaching is very much a part of our plan in all 3 models. It's when teachers and students and instructors are online at the same time. It could take the place of lectures. It could mean discussions. It could be presentations that take place at very specific hours. Group sizes can vary in synchronous lessons, but all students and teachers participate in the class during synchronous times. When students are in asynchronous learning times, they can complete their assignments the way they would in their classroom. They're given a time frame or a window of time where they need to connect to their class and turn in papers, usually daily. And students access their assignments and content through Google Classroom. So I want to go a little bit into live streaming or synchronous instruction. The roles of parents and students is that parents are not participants in live streaming classes. You don't need to worry about clarifying questions. The audience is students for live stream classes. That's the opportunity for our students to be in the class with their peers and with their teacher. There's no recording of live instruction unless the teacher determines to do so and post into their Google Classroom. We did look at the questions in our question stream in our Q&A block. Thank you for sending in your questions in order to inform our presentation tonight. And some of the questions were, can you opt out of a live stream classroom? And we, of course, clarified with our legal counsel that, you know, the rights around FERPA. And because of the condition of education and the response to a health emergency, it is a part of every single one of our classrooms. So live streaming is a component that's a necessity due to the conditions of education. The State Department has mandated or has endorsed that instruction, and it is not a record that we would maintain on an individual student. So when we look to define schedules for remote learners and we think about how this school year looks, we did look at a lot of research at the end of last year in order to define what the school day looked like. This is research that came out at the end of July from Columbia University and was also endorsed by the State Department. And it really helps us to understand the length of the school day for elementary and secondary school children. I do want to say, going back to that slide, you will see here that students in high school, it recommends that length of school day should be 5 hours. However, there are exceptions, and I really want parents to be able to understand what those exceptions are. One of the pieces that is that we offer at Daniel Hand is AP courses and UConn ECE classes. The AP courses are the purview of College Board. Advanced placement is pacing and curriculum and assessments that are not influenced by Madison Public Schools. In order to offer AP classes, we have to guarantee that the experiences are those that College Board recommends and mandates from us. So that means that students in AP classes are most likely to receive full instructional blocks. That means continuous streaming throughout their period, as well as additional homework. And that homework is usually around an extra hour at night. So if you have a child that is taking 2 AP classes and maybe another couple honors classes, you really want to think about what that schedule looks like. In the Daniel Hand handbook, there is page 92 in the program of studies. There's a timer for planning and time allocations that you should really consider looking at and filling out with your student. Make sure that you also pay attention to our course drop dates. So if your child and you decide that you want to try to look at a heavy course load, that you're prepared with what that might look like in an environment where you're in and out of school classrooms. AP courses, again, are very rigorous, and you should allocate your time accordingly, and also pay attention to how your students doing as they take on their course load. Contact guidance if you're concerned or if you think it's taking a toll on them. I do want to share with our high school parents as well that we are targeting executive functioning tools to launch the year, and also developing a who do I go to resource to help our high school students who might be feeling overscheduled or having difficulty in distance learning. So let's talk a little bit about schedules throughout the system. We really want to mirror the regular school day schedule to the greatest extent possible, because our students and our teachers and our system will be fluid in nature, which means that we might be in person and then we might need to move to a distance learning model because there might be a confirmed case of COVID that we need to respond to. And then we're moving back out of that into a full in-school model. So because of that, we want to make sure that we have uniformity. We want to keep the pace of teaching and learning. And we want to make sure that our live stream classes become routine and that the materials and equipment that we're providing our students become part of their routine as well. We're going to share with you some of those routines as our teachers and our panelists start to elaborate on what Google Classroom looks like. Here's a little bit about attendance. Attendance is taken daily. All policies are followed regarding remote learning. And all students are expected to attend our live stream sessions. Some live stream sessions will be recorded by our teachers for reteaching and pre-teaching and makeup work. I heard some of our viewers are having a hard time seeing the PowerPoint. And I'll look to my panelists. Is there any, can you see it, Stanley?
If in the middle, there's a bar, and if they grab onto that bar and slide, they'll be able to expand the PowerPoint and decrease the number of people that are visible.
That would be Mr. Mezek. Is that what, does that help at all? So if you grab the bar and pull it over, you'll have a better viewing experience. Assessments and grading, when we look at the assessment piece and how we will assess our students, you'll see some examples tonight for Go Formative. And also we are looking at definitely taking the state assessments at this time. So the SBAC, the Smarter Balanced Assessment, as well as the Connecticut SATs are slated to continue this year. But in addition to our Go Formative assessment system, we always value authentic work in our assessment. We'll also be looking for universal screening tools to give us more information about students who might be struggling. There's a piece at the end about grades. Unlike last year, we won't be doing pass-fail. We will be doing a traditional grading system as elaborated. Sorry. Did that help you? No. Okay, sorry. Still getting feedback about our slides. I wanted to share with you some information about technology and the Google Classrooms. There is a national supply shortage for Chromebooks. We have ordered Chromebooks as early as the spring for our one-to-one distribution, but we have yet to receive all of the Chromebooks. So we are prioritizing the distribution of Chromebooks for the start of the school year to the people who responded on the survey that they needed Chromebooks, you know, in order to access the distance learning. After we distribute the Chromebooks to the priority families, then as we receive the shipment later in September, we will be distributing to 100% of our student body. We do appreciate the flexibility of families of if they have equipment at home, utilizing that home equipment so we can prioritize our distribution. So if you haven't filled out that survey, we are sending out notices from our principals for remaining respondents. It's really important that we receive those survey responses so we can make sure that all of our materials get into the hands of students prior to the first day. The Chromebooks will travel back and forth with students due to the nature of the changing situations in Connecticut. So they will be carrying them back and forth in their backpack. And of course, our classrooms are equipped. So we talked a little bit about synchronous and asynchronous learning design, and that means that we want kids learning at home at the same pace and the same lessons and the same assignments and standards as described in the weekly planner. So again, we look at a hybrid model, or whether your students are you know, home learners this year or distance learners all the time, or whether we're all in distance learning. We're trying to make sure that we balance the time in our classroom between asynchronous learning and synchronous learning. So here is a sample daily schedule with live stream approximations. And this schedule, again, the entire webinar will be posted, and I assure you we'll have a backup of this presentation that will be posted on the website, so it will be big and bold and you can make it as large as you want. I will say that in these blocks of times, these are sample schedules. So we're trying to give you an idea of what a student day looks like K through 3, what a student day looks like in grades 4 through 5, and a student day in Polson and at Daniel Hand. Approximately 50% of each block of this instruction would be live streamed or synchronous learning. So I'm gonna ask Mike Ginsberg, our instructional technology specialist, to jump in and talk about how we standardized our Google Classroom protocols and what we did to respond to that request and that feedback from students and from our parents. Mike?
Thanks, Gail. So as Gail was saying, we took feedback from our parents, from our students, and from our teachers of what worked well in the spring and also what didn't work so well in the spring. And we took all that feedback to develop these protocols to standardize our Google Classroom from kindergarten through 12th grade. And I'm just going to walk you through the different parts that we standardized. So the first part is the stream. So the Google Classroom has three main parts for the students. And the first is the stream. And what was happening in the spring is sometimes you would just get just a flow of classwork, and it was difficult for a lot of students to figure out where their work was as things got pushed down the stream. So what we've done is we've eliminated that. The stream is only going to be used for announcements, for pictures, or other things that are not classwork related. The next part is the classwork. So that's the second section. And in that part, we've come up with 4 main topics. The first one is called Today. All of the work due for that day or assigned that day will be found in the Today topic. The assignments that would be in there or in other places as we move through the week will all be given a due date for when the assignment is due. The way that's helpful is in their to-do list, which you'll see later, and also within the Google Calendar, you'd be able to look, or your student would be able to look and find out exactly when their work is due for which class and when. Our next topic is called A Week at a Glance. And the purpose of that is to give parents and students an overview of the week. So what we heard loud and clear from parents is what they want to see, what was coming up, so they could help their student plan both for their work and for their live sessions. So you'll see both of those things as well, and you'll see examples in just a moment. The next topic we have are materials and resources. Those are things that students would use throughout the course of the class. And then finally, we'll have the week of section. So for example, the first week would be like the week of August 31st, and any work that wasn't for that day would then slide down into that week category. And again, you'll see that in a moment. On the teacher side of things, we have the settings. And one of the settings that we're going to make sure is turned on is how to link to the live Google Meet. And by turning that on, it puts a link right in the header of Google Classroom. So your student will always know exactly how to attend the Meet by simply clicking that link in the Google Classroom. And finally is the people section. And what's important about that is really for the parents, because what we'll do is we will invite all the parents to become guardians of their student. And if you accept that, what that enables the parent to do is receive either a daily or a weekly summary of the work that occurred in your student's class for that day. And that's our standardization. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass things to Erin Chester and Drew Saletti, who are going to give you a glimpse into what an incoming first grade student would see within their classroom.
All right. So as you can see on the screen right now, like Gail was mentioning earlier, this is a sample schedule of what a K-3 student might experience during the day. And inside my Google Classroom, I'll show you where something like that would be posted. So in just a second, I'm going to share my screen with you. So this way I can show you my first grade sample classroom. Okay. All right, so once you register, you'll see something like this. You go ahead, click on it. I know, lovely cats at the top, but it's one of those personal touches that teachers can add to their page to establish a connection with their students. So this first piece is the stream. So on the stream page, like Mike was saying, this is a place where you'll find announcements, maybe updates, posting pictures. So I'm going to move down to the bottom. This might be something like an introduction that I might give my students. A little bit about myself. I always like to talk about my animals, my dogs. Yes, I'm showing everyone. So just that personal touch, that connection. I might post something that I did in a morning meeting, such as a morning message that I made edits with my students. So this way, parents can see how we share the pen, well, metaphorically, and make edits. I'll explain the purpose of it, the intentions of it. In here, another morning meeting activity. I love to talk about growth mindset in my classroom. So this Class Dojo series is a really awesome one to talk about that growth mindset. And especially now that social emotional learning is even more important. And I'll even link it in there. So this way you can access those resources at home with your child. An announcement, maybe to an upcoming webinar. Maybe there's a Google Classroom webinar that's coming up that I would like to let you know about that you can access so that you can best help your child at home. So the stream is a really useful piece of Google Classroom. Now on the side right here, you're going to see, you see that it says upcoming. So this shows you when assignments are just that upcoming due. So I can click on the assignment straight away to go to it, or I can view all. When I view all, here's all of the assignments that have been assigned to me. If I want to be more specific, I can go to assignments missing. Oh yeah, I'm not missing anything. I can go to things that have been returned to me from my teacher, or things that have just been assigned that haven't passed and aren't due just yet. I can click on them from here if I need to access them straight away. View details. What I want to do now is I'm going to jump back to the main page, the stream. So if I click just right up here on the class's title, it'll take me right back to that stream page. Okay, so I'm going to move on to classwork. So if I click the classwork tab, it's organized just like Mike was speaking to just a few moments ago. So we have the different sections, the topics. We have today, we have week at a glance, materials and resources, the week of September 8th. I know we're not there yet, but pretend. Okay. So if I'm looking at today, those are assignments or resources that were posted for the day. So this might be where you find an assignment, but also a recorded session, a recorded live that if you're accessing it later on in the day to help your child complete the material, that's where that will be. Once it is no longer the work for today, your teacher will reassign it down into the week of topic to help keep it organized. And this way you'll know where the materials are and you can still access them. If I'm looking at week at a glance, this is where you'll find learning for the week. You'll also find a sample schedule that will include the live sessions that we've highlighted in yellow. And so what we'll do is we'll also put the link here inside of the material. So this way you'll get it in your Guardian summary. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And this is a sample. This is just something we're using as an example, just to show you what it may look like. A time, activity, total minutes for the activity. And so if I look here at the foundations in reading, it's say, for example, it takes place from 9:45 to 10:45, a total of 60 minutes. The expectation is for that period or the content area that the teacher is live for 50% of the time. And so what we've done is we've highlighted that live time clearly. And so this way you'll log on at 9:45 and your child will access that live session from 9:45 to 10:15. And the idea was to lay that out for the duration of the day. Where you would access that live meet link, right here at the top of the teacher's page, that link will always be there, and that's the one that you'll access to engage in those live sessions. I'm gonna jump back to classwork. You'll also find in here modules. These modules give you an overview of the learning to come in a week. It's not necessarily a Monday through Friday thing, but it's just to kind of show you the kind of a sequence of your child's learning in that subject area. And there are links in there. And all of this is just to help you better see where your child's learning is going. And like I said, it's not supposed to be like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday thing. Okay, so that's what's going to be in week at a glance. In materials, you'll see things that might be pertinent for you to help your child be more successful or you successful with Google Classroom. So in here, I put a Google Classroom tutorial that my parents could access. I put some of those growth mindset videos that parents could access if they so choose. And then, like I mentioned earlier, here's the week of September 8th, in keeping all of those assignments that are no longer today's assignment organized. So I'm going to click on one of the assignments now. I'm going to go back up here to the top and say I'm going to my math assignment that's due today or that I'm working on today. I'll go to view assignment. In here, you'll see a description of what it is, what the teacher might be asking you to do. Some descriptions are longer than others. So say, for example, that the assignment is stamina reading, and it's just read with your child for 15 minutes. And you just want to let the teacher know that that's something that you've completed. You simply hit mark as done, and the teacher will know that that assignment is done and completed. Say it's something that requires a material. I would go to add or create work. I can click file, and I've uploaded a picture of my work, my beautiful tally marks, and I attach it, and then I would turn it in. Boop. So I'm not going to turn it in just now. But say I had a question about the assignment or I had a concern. This private comment section is going to be really important for that because it is exactly that. It's a private comment. It's private discussion between you and your child's teacher. So I can put in there, hey, I think Drew is struggling with this assignment. What are some things I can do to support him from home? And that will go right to your teacher and your child's teacher, and they'd be able to help you address any concerns you may have. Okay, whoops. All right. So something else that like we were mentioning earlier, or K-12 will be GoFormative, and GoFormative, it will sync right into Google Classroom. And so inside Google Classroom, I've actually linked in a GoFormative. And so I'm going to go ahead, click on that, open it up, and then Erin Chester is going to explain a little bit about this GoFormative. So Erin.
Hello, everybody. This is an example of a grade 1 GoFormative assessment. I think Gail mentioned earlier, this is a digital assessment tool purchased for K-12. It's a way that we can give assessments to students, whether they're at home or they're in school, to check for understanding and to guide our instruction as we plan for each set of lessons that we're going to do. So this particular assessment is a book choice checklist taken directly out of our curriculum. It is a transfer task to let us know what kind of readers are in our first grade classes. We usually give this assessment right in the beginning of the year to see really how students feel about themselves as a reader, what they're interested in, you know, how they view themselves and how they can interpret the text. So what we did was we took this checklist and we were able to plug it right into GoFormative. You can see the little arrows on the side. We realized we have some young readers coming in. We don't want them to be intimidated by the text. So if they click on that button, they can hear the question or hear the statement being read to them. And then they can click on their answer, not yet, starting to, or yes. And that's all part of the recording as they make their way through those questions. At the end, one of the things we decided to do was we really wanted to find out what they love about reading, how they view themselves, do they enjoy doing it? But we didn't want them to kind of be burdened by the writing piece of giving an answer to this. So with GoFormative, we are able to do a recorded audio response that allows them to just record how they feel about reading. When we create the GoFormative, we're able to, once the student actually completes the GoFormative, we're able to get the data immediately back, and we can kind of look across at the class and see what it is that we want to work on. So in this case, this book choice checklist really helps us to determine goals for the student, areas that they can work on to guide their instruction throughout our first unit of study. But I think what is really important, you're going to see a number of GoFormatives going all the way up to the high school level. And, you know, I think immediately when you think about an assessment online, it doesn't feel like it might fit for a first grade student or a kindergarten student, but you can see that it's very kid friendly. And I think that in the beginning of the year, when the students are with us, and we have those small cohorts of students, that we could also be guiding them through the steps to completing these assessments online. So we're teaching them, so then when they have to do one at home, they're comfortable and confident with the assessment. So I'm going to now turn it over to Stacy Daly, who's going to show you a 4th grade weekly planner and a 4th grade Go Formative, and you'll actually be able to see how those assessments grow as the students grow. Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Stacy Daly. I'm the math instructional coach at Brown and Colson. And so this is an example of a 4th grade weekly learning plan for math. And as you take a look at it, you'll see that the report card standards are listed at the top that this weekly planner will be addressing, as well as the objective. And then as you start to look down, it's not, as Drew mentioned before, it's not day by day. It's really for over the course of the week. But this first week, we'll be doing a lot of community building and establishing routines as we're doing math tasks. And one of the things that'll also be involved in this is a digital scavenger hunt where we'll be teaching the kids how to use different tools on Google, such as Google Slides. You'll see that over the course of the week that we're still doing things like Number Corner and will be K-5. And then, as Erin and Drew just mentioned, we'll be using Go Formative screeners or Go Formative tasks over the course of our distance learning. And one of the things that we'll be doing in math is we'll be using things called screeners instead of pre-assessments in K-5. And these screeners will allow us to look at those skills that our students need to be successful in a particular unit. So as Gail mentioned before, we're going to be looking at those math skills in real time, unit by unit. And we want to know if there's something that they may be missing skill-wise from the learning from last year. And so something like this will allow us to do that. And if you take a look on the side here, you'll see that we've really looked at those documents that Gail showed earlier as what are those activities that we're going to do and use if our students are coming up with an area of need that we need to fill in. So let me go ahead and show you what a Go Formative would look like for our 4th graders. And so this is what the screen would look like for them. On the side is the Bridges piece on the left side. On the right side, you'll see the questions, and we've even, similar to what 1st grade did, we recorded them. One of the 4th grade teachers recorded her voice so the kids can hear it read to them. And then they'll be able to, on some of the questions, they'll simply type in a number or maybe even an equation. But the really neat thing about this tool for us in math is that at all levels in math, they'll be able to show their work. And so they'll either be able to use a pen tool and actually write in here and show their work. They could come with a text piece and they could type in here. Or if the students prefer and they really want to work with paper and pencil, they can take a picture of it and they can upload an image. So the tool in general gives us an array of being able to give a lot of different types of questions where the kids can go in and we can give them the images that they're used to and fill in the questions, and then we'll be able to look at and respond to all of their answers and to give them feedback within this tool as well. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Chris Pagliuco, who's going to be able to show you what this would look like at the middle school level.
Okay, great, thank you. So what we see on the screen here is what a social studies weekly learning plan could look like at Polson Middle School. And this is a time in a student's life when they are having more teachers than they're used to at the younger levels. Generally speaking, there'll be some commonalities across a student's the different teachers that a student has. In this case, we're dealing with social studies. Our unit is called Defining Democracy, US Citizenship. And here we list the 3 standards that are priority standards for our first unit. We list the objective for the week through discourse and reflective exploration. Students will be able to describe why communities have rules and why a government is needed. We start out by trying to activate prior knowledge and build a narrative between their 7th grade curriculum and the upcoming 8th grade curriculum. And we also want to review some skills that the students learned previously that we're going to be using at the beginning of their 8th grade year and then elevating as the year goes along. In this case, it's image analysis. So we show them some images from 7th grade and then some images in 8th grade, and they draw some connections between the two. And we hope to inspire some curiosity about their upcoming curriculum that they're going to be participating in. In the end, we ask them, do you think it will be easier or harder to learn about the violations of rights in the US than abroad, and why? They learned about violations of human rights in grade 7 abroad, and in grade 8, it tends to be a bit of a focus in the United States. Over on the far right-hand side, you can see that we have several ideas for how a teacher can support struggling learners. And then we also have some extensions for learners who have who can handle the material and are ready to move forward. We move on to a state of nature where the students are watching a couple of movie trailers. This is in replacement of a lesson that we were able to do in person much easier last year. And then they predict and post what's going to happen in those movies. And these 2 movies relate to humankind in the state of nature. They go forth and for support, they could do a T-chart, and then we have a predict activity for extension. The following day, perhaps, the students will be commenting on each other. This is sort of a form of a discussion board. So, and we're trying to foster respectful dialogue, and this is where we're going to start to go over those norms. And then finally, we go to a form of Socratic seminar. We previously liked to have the students in small groups and rotating through, but that became difficult in this circumstance. So we would probably go, or anticipate going with a fishbowl style, where our students in class can be discussing and our students online can be observing and making notes and observations. And then they can flip vice versa. Our students online can be discussing the topic and the students in class can be observing. And finally, we would go to this reflection sheet based on the Socratic seminar. And you can see that here. We're trying to foster close listening skills in the students and respectful dialogue, as I previously mentioned. So they're going to be speaking about a piece of evidence in which they had the strongest reaction that they heard from another student. And then they're going to explain why they felt that way. And then down below, we have a self-assessment where the kids can drag each of these items over to how they feel they did. Did they do excellent, good? Are they in progress, or do they need improvement? And they can drag these over. And then finally, at the end of an early week of the school year, based on their self-assessment, they can set a personal goal for our next Socratic seminar. And with that in mind, then we sort of graduate up to the high school, and Paul Mezek is going to be presenting from there.
I just wanted to mention in between that if people are still having difficulty viewing, I think the presentation is up above the speaker's head. Double click on the presentation and it should change places with the presenter. So just do a double click on the slides and that should be your big screen. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So here's an example of a Google Classroom at the high school. It has the Google Meet right at the top, as Mr. Ginsburg had said. This is an example of the classwork page. It resembles the same type of page you would see at the elementary and also the middle school. And all of this is built off of our weekly learning plans. The weekly learning plans are derived at the high school. We pulled from the content standards right out of the curriculum documents. You'll notice there will be a natural flow in our weekly plan. We pulled also from the curriculum document the understandings. As we go through, you'll see that when I get to weekly plan 2, the understandings will change. Students start doing other activities that pull from different components of the curriculum, such as certain skill sets like constructing a model. and also transfer tasks. In the second column are the tasks that the students will be doing. There will be some note taking, there will be some guided reading. There's also modeling activities, and there's quite a few different types of software platforms that are available. I use one in particular called Pear Deck, which is a really unique platform that allows students at home to connect to a presentation in the classroom by logging in. This kind of bridges the gap between the distance learners and those that are in person. It also allows me to pose questions to students in a formative way throughout the presentation, which I'm in control of the pace of. We also have some reteaching or extension. We worked with a consultant, Kate Roberts, and she gave us some information on how to help students to extract and read for information, specifically with scientific articles and science reading. At the end of the weekly plan, there's also going to be the assessments. In this case, we have a quiz assessment. That's going to be about week 3. I'm going to show you what that looks like in a moment. I want you to just take a look for a moment at the progression. As we move into week 2, you'll notice that the number of standards have increased because the students are learning more content that's going to help them with the unit that they're learning. Again, the understandings, you'll notice that now we've moved on to understanding 2 and 4 from the curriculum document. We're using some of the same types of checkings for understandings. And then we get to some points where students are going to work on some activities that are really important and really pertinent to moving forward, and they're based on their understanding determines the progression of the next several weeks. So let me show you a couple of the Go formatives. This one in particular is based on an assignment that students will do in the second week. It asks students to take a look at feeding relationships and energy as it moves through. I did put some additional information for students, like a video for them to watch. This particular question is not something that the students would know at this time about photosynthesis, but it might be a way for teachers to sort of gauge their understanding to see where they might move forward. In each of the Go formatives, you'll notice on each of the teachers' presentations, there were these little like standard codes. These standards are a reflection of what's in the document. So if I look at LS1C and LS2B, I should see similar in the standards that are pulled for the weekly plan, LS2C, LS2B. This way I can gauge whether my assessment is a reflection of my weekly plan. I also then can flesh out that information on student performance and use that as a way to gauge if we need to maybe go back and reteach or move forward. And that's also information that I would use to gauge how I might treat my students on Wednesdays. Students that are struggling, I might put them into groups. Students that are doing well based on those particular standards, I might put them into an extension activity. And then one more that I'll show you. This happens to be a quiz assessment. There is I just want to show you the student view is a little bit different than the teacher view. In this particular question, students are rearranging in order. There are other types of formats of questions, such as drag and drop. So this one, students are looking at a feeding relationship and they're trying to figure out who the producer is. It's not the killer whale. That would be cool. And then they just drag and drop. And again, these are all aligned to standards as well. And we can pull that out and use that as information for moving forward. I'm now going to turn the presentation back over to the assistant superintendent.
Gail, you're muted on mute.
I'm here. Gail, did you need help? Gail, you've somehow muted yourself. See.
Maybe while she works on this, unmuting herself, I'm going to just talk a little bit about special education. So first of all students who receive special education services are always general education students first. So they would be participating in all those evaluations like the Go Formatives that have been shared with you from the staff earlier tonight. We will also be looking to see where all of our students are on their goals and objectives. So our goals and our annual goals and objectives should be accomplished within a year. So we need to determine, where the students are right now and where we need to move them up so they can accomplish them within the year. Last week, the State Department of Education provided us with a new Learning Model IEP implementation plan. This Learning Model implementation plan is something that we will be creating for all students. So this plan will show any differences between what services look like when we're in person and full and what they look like in hybrid or then when we go to remote. Now we will be delivering all of our services, or we may be making some adjustments in the hybrid mode. For example, if a student is receiving 30 minutes of a special education in a general education classroom, it might make more sense, instead of the teacher participating in that distance classroom, to have 30 minutes with a small group with that student. So there may be some adjustments based upon how there's been a shift in instruction. All case managers will be reaching out to families prior to the school year starting to get their input, and we will be providing all families with the new Learning Model IEP implementation plan prior to the school year starting this year. Now, it is a plan that we can adjust outside of the PPT process, so it may be fluid and adjust as needed. For students who are opting into the remote learning plan, we will also be making them the Learning Model IEP plan, and we will make our best effort to implement the IEP services for those students in light of the services. Gail, are you all set now?
I am. Thank you, Liz.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. Sorry about that. I think we just had an upgrade that I didn't expect. So I had a little funkiness on my computer. I want to continue with the panelist questions. Another question that came forth was, how will distance learners be able to ask questions during the course of a lesson?
So upcoming in Google, they're going to have a lot of upgrades for us. So the kids are going to be able to pose questions and we'll be able to give answers. Teachers are going to be able to do some poll questions, so to have a little bit more interactivity. They're going to be able to raise their hand in the live Google Meet as well. So in coming in like September, October, you're going to see a lot more interactivity in Google Meets. It's going to afford the kids the ability to ask a lot more questions during our live meets.
Thank you. Another question that came into our inbox was regarding academic supports that there are for students who might be struggling with the content. How will we intervene when we see a student is falling behind?
I'd be happy to address that at the elementary level if you'd like, Gail.
Sure, that'd be great.
Terrific. I think it'll feel very similar to both parents and teachers. We will be adhering to the Madison Public Schools document regarding SRBI. And so a teacher will be looking at student work, the small group instruction that they're having with the child, assessments that are being taken place, and really doing an analysis of that work and that feedback, and making a determination of, is this child not making the progress that we would have anticipated the child to have been making? That teacher would come to our student support team and be looking at what type of supports would best meet that targeted need. It may simply be tier 1, which is delivered by the classroom teacher. And that could, again, be that small group, that one-to-one conferencing that's really targeting a specific identified area. That teacher, it may be fluency, it may be comprehension, it could be one-to-one correspondence in mathematics. Whatever the targeted area is, that teacher is then progress monitoring using a variety of tools twice a week, monitoring that progress, and then coming back together to the data SST team, excuse me, and looking at the progress and results as a collection of work with colleagues to determine, are we going to continue on this path, or is there something different needed? There may be something needed where it's a tier 2 or tier 3, and that would be with the support of our math interventionists or our reading interventionists, depending on the level of concern and the area of concern. Again, we would always continue to be using progress monitoring tools, taking that data collection and then reconvening as a team to determine, are we going to continue on this instructional path with this child, or are we going to shift our focus depending on the performance of the child? And as always, we are communicating this ongoing with the parent, and including the parent in the process as well, because it's a team effort. So that's how we would be doing it at the elementary level, and I'm sure it's very similar at the other levels as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Spooner. Anybody want to add to that from any other level?
Yeah, I would like to just add from Pulse in the middle school, very similar to elementary. And really, when you see a student struggling with content, it's a two-pronged approach. And it's the same whether the student is an in-person learner or a remote learner. And the first thing you do is you talk to the student to see, to really find out what is the root of the problem. We don't wait for progress reports or grades or a formal assessment. You talk to the child to get the reason behind the struggle. And it might be a skill gap, or it might be something more social emotional based, but knowing the child is key. And as happened with elementary, we have a wealth of tools to address it, one-on-one conferencing and group instruction, pre-teaching, reteaching, and we do that. We also, based on our SRBI manual, we might also develop an objective, a targeted objective that we also kind of, we focus on it in all the content areas so everyone has data to look at the child and to really assess them. But the real key here, I think, with all of it is the teamwork. So we have the core team of teachers. That includes also related arts and world language. We have a core team that supports with support staff, the student. And then we really have a team with the parents. So it's all about communication between the student and the teacher, between the teacher and home, and among the entire team at Polson in the middle school.
Thank you. I do want to go back to one of the slides that I was going to talk about, and I apologize for the glitch that we had near the end. I wanted to really help parents a little bit with the Wednesdays, in particular in the hybrid model. So Wednesdays in any other model, the in-person model or the distance model is the same as any other day. And in large part, Wednesdays in the hybrid model is similar in that it follows the regular school day schedule. So just in the way we shared through all of the demonstrations throughout the system, what the schedule looks like, what the assignments look like, on Wednesdays in the hybrid model, students will be logging on to live meet sessions according to the schedule that their teachers present. The difference on Wednesdays in a hybrid model in particular is the ability for teachers to blend the cohorts from cohort A to cohort B in a united day. And in that, there is an opportunity to do small group instruction with both cohorts to act as a whole school community, even though we are in person separately. So that is the priority, is to look at small group instruction, flexible groups for reteaching, cooperative group work between the two cohorts, and really doing some meaningful small group sessions in addition to some large group instruction possibilities. So I want to make clear that Wednesdays are not an open drop-in appointment Q&A or office hours. They are a regular school day. The treatment of Wednesdays in a hybrid model is to blend the two cohorts on one full day. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank so many teachers in Madison Public Schools that you see represented here today. They are just an incredible group to work with. It's a great honor to work with them. You can see the level of commitment that they have to making this a great year for your child, regardless of what grade level they are. You can tell the level of commitment that we have as a school district to make sure that we are assessing and that we're growing and we're learning from their experiences and we're meeting their needs, whether they're in front of us in seats or whether they're at a distance behind our screens. I think that this is an opportunity for us as teachers as well as parents to really reassure our kids that it's going to be a great start to the school year, that they're going to have relationships with their teachers and relationships with their peers, just as they did any other school year. We count on parents as our partners to set the tone for the school year with our students. We want to reassure them that we are just the same people that we've always been and the same educators, and that we are going to be there for them regardless of what the platforms are. So I'd like to thank all of our parents for their time tonight. I also want to share with them that the YouTube channel did show the full presentation. So if you had a difficult time with the technologies, that you can watch the full piece on YouTube. We will be sure to post all of the slides in addition on our website. So I hope you saw evidence in our presentation tonight that we did respond to feedback from our parents, our student groups, and our school community, our teachers, to improve upon the system that we had in place in the spring, and that we've really been thinking about how to make movement between the various models as seamless as possible. Of course, we're going to take full advantage of every day of teaching and learning this year, and we thank you again for your partnership and your support. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you to those who attended our webinars. Thanks.
Thank you.